This man, folks, is an admiral of the Canadian Royal Navy. His name is William Guy Carr. And he wrote a famous book, which right now I just checked on Amazon. Used is selling for $40 and new for $70. I think even the Kindle version is 30 something dollars. And the book is called Pawns in the Game. And it's a full explanation of the truth from the cryptos in Europe all the way through the Jesuits to the Vatican, from Adam Weishaupt, the Illuminists, the societies in Spain, the Bavarians, the French, the Royals, Washington, D.C., New England, Federal Reserve, the Rothschild family, the whole thing. He was exposing this early on. He was giving tours from 1932 to 1945 on all of these topics, and supported by the Royal Navy to tour around and give this lecture. And I'm surprised he survived. Let me read to you the introduction. I found a PDF of the whole book. It's 203 pages, and I'm going to include the link below, and I suggest that you grab this link while it's still online, and I shared it with you. And then you can read it on your computer screen or your device screen, and you don't have to buy the book because it fell into my hands, and I give it to you. So, Pawns in the Game. About the author. At the early age of 12, the author was thoroughly indoctrinated into the Bolshevik ideology by two revolutionary missionaries, probably Jesuits, who traveled on the same ship with him out to the Orient in 1907. Unlike many others, he didn't swallow the bait they offered him, hook, line, and sinker. He decided to keep an open mind and to investigate matters thoroughly before reaching any conclusions. His investigations and studies of all angles of the international conspiracy have taken him to nearly every country in the world. Commander Carr has had a distinguished naval career. During World War I, he served as a navigating officer of HM submarines. And in World War II, he was naval control officer for the St. Lawrence. That's the river. Then staff officer operations at Shelbourne, NS. Then senior naval officer at Goose Bay, Labrador. As an officer on the staff of the Commodore Reginald Brock, he organized the 7th Victory Loan for the 22 Royal Canadian Naval Training Divisions. As an author, he has previously published the 7 books listed above. Some were specifically bound for inclusion in the Royal Library, the Library of the Imperial War Museum, and the Sir Millington Drake Library, which is bequeathed to Eton College, and the Braille Library for the Blind. Several of his books have been published in European languages. Books previously published by the same author are By Guess and by God, Hell's Angels of the Deep, High and Dry, Good Hunting, Out of the Mists, Checkmate in the North, Brass Hats and Bell-Bottomed Trousers. Commander Carr is known to many Canadians who have attended his public lectures. He toured Canada for Canadian clubs in 1930 through 1931. He warned people of the existence of an international conspiracy. He foretold that the conspirators would, unless checked, drag the world into another global war. In the years between 1931 and 1939, he addressed social and service clubs all over Ontario. In 1944 and 45, he was sent on another lecture tour of Canada by the naval authorities. He explained why it would be necessary to win the peace if the fruits of military victory were not to be thrown away again. Commander Carr is determined to inform as many people as possible regarding the evil forces which adversely affect all our lives and the lives of our children. His book will be an eye-opener to parents, clergymen, teachers, students, statesmen, politicians, and labor leaders. Pawns in the Game. Here is a true story of international intrigue, romances, corruption, graft, and political assassinations, the like of which has never been written before. It is the story of how different groups on atheistic, materialistic men have played in an international chess tournament to decide which group would win ultimate control of the wealth, natural resources, and manpower of the entire world. It is explained how the game has reached the final stage. The international communists and the international capitalists, both of whom have totalitarian ambitions, have temporarily joined hands to defeat Christian democracy. The cover design shows that all moves made by the international conspirators are directed by Satan, and while the situation is decidedly serious, it is definitely not hopeless. The solution is to end the game the international conspirators have been playing right now before one or another totalitarian-minded group impose their ideas on the rest of mankind. The story is sensational and shocking, but it is educational because it is the truth. The author offers practical solutions to problems so many people consider insoluble. The publisher. Special announcement. The Red Fog Over America was published in December of 1955. This book, by the same author, is the story of communist conspiracy in North America from 1920 to date. The Ottawa spy trials only exposed one spy ring. The Red Fog exposes 4 others and explains how subversive cells have infiltrated into every level of government and into every class of society. It exposes their activities in politics, labor, industry, education, religion, the armed forces, the civil service, and veteran affairs. The Red Fog exposes the hookup between the legal and illegal sections of the Communist Party, the affiliations between the communist underground and the criminal underworld, the way all kinds of rackets and illegal traffic and trade are used to undermine the national economy is exposed. The author explains how the subversives encourage and then exploit juvenile delinquency. I'm going to read part of the introduction here, folks. You'll find this online. There are others who have this. There's a recorded version from 50 years ago that I found earlier this month. I'll put the links below. The International Conspiracy. Introduction. Pawns in the Game by William Guy Carr. If what I reveal surprises and shocks the reader, please don't develop an inferiority complex. Because I am frank to admit that although I have worked since 1911 trying to find out why the human race can't live in peace and enjoy the bounties and blessings God provides for our use and benefit in such abundance. It was 1950 before I penetrated the secret that the wars and revolutions which scourge our lives and the chaotic conditions that prevail are nothing more or less than the effects of the continuing Luciferian conspiracy. It started in that part of the universe we call heaven, when Lucifer challenged the right of God to exercise supreme authority. The Holy Scriptures tell us how the Luciferian conspiracy was transferred to this world in the Garden of Eden, until I realized that our struggle is not with flesh and blood, but with the spiritual forces of darkness who control all those in high places on this earth. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. The pieces of evidence gathered all over this world just didn't fit together and make sense. I am not ashamed to admit that the Bible provided the key which enabled me to obtain an answer to the question quoted above. Very few people seem able to appreciate that Lucifer is the brightest and most intelligent of the heavenly hosts, and because he is pure spirit, he is indestructible. The Scriptures tell us his power is such that he caused 1/3 of the most intelligent of the heavenly host to defect from God and join him, because he claimed God's plan for the rule of the universe is weak and impractical, because it is based on the premise that lesser beings can be taught to know, love, and wish to serve him voluntarily out of respect for his own infinite perfections. The Luciferian ideology states might is right. It claims beings of proven superior intelligence have the right to rule those less gifted because the masses don't know what is best for them. The Luciferian ideology is what we call totalitarianism today. The Old Testament is simply the history of how Satan became prince of the world and caused our first parents to defect from God. It realizes how the synagogue of Satan was established on this earth. It tells how it has worked since to prevent God's plan for the rule of the universe being established on this earth. Christ came to earth when the conspiracy reached the stage that, to use his own words, Satan controlled all those in high places. He exposed the synagogue of Satan. Revelations chapter 2, 9 and chapter 3, 9. He denounced those who belonged to it as sons of the devil, Lucifer, whom he castigated as the father of lies, in John chapter 8, verse 44, and the prince of deceit, 2 Corinthians 11:14. He was specific in his statement that those who comprised the synagogue of Satan were those who called themselves Jews, but were not, and did lie. Revelations 2, 9 and 3, 9. He identified the money changers, bankers, the scribes and the Pharisees as the Illuminati of his day. What so many people seem to forget is the fact that Christ came on earth to release us from the bonds of Satan, with which we are being bound tighter and tighter as the years rolled by. Christ gave us a solution to our problem when he told us we must go forth and teach the truth regarding this conspiracy. John chapter 8, 31, 59. To all people of all nations, he promised that if we did this, knowledge of the truth would set us free. Matthew 28:19. The Luciferian conspiracy has developed until it is in its semi-final stage. Matthew 24, verses 15 and 34. Simply because we have failed to put the mandate Christ gave us into effect. In 1784, an act of God placed the Bavarian government in possession of evidence which proved the existence of the continuing Luciferian conspiracy. Adam Weishaupt, a Jesuit-trained professor of canon law, defected from Christianity and embraced the Luciferian ideology while teaching in Ingolstadt University. In 1770, the moneylenders who had recently organized the House of Rothschild retained him to revise and modernize the age-old protocols designed to give the synagogue of Satan ultimate world domination so that they can impose Luciferian ideology upon what remains of the human race after the final social cataclysm by use of satanic despotism. Weishaupt completed his task May 1st, 1776. He's speaking of a writing called the Protocols of Zion, by the way. The plan required the destruction of all existing governments and religions. This objective was to be reached by dividing the masses, whom he termed goyim, meaning human cattle, into opposing camps in ever-increasing numbers on political, racial, social, economic, and other issues. The opposing sides were then to be armed, and an incident provided which would cause them to fight and weaken themselves as they destroyed national governments and religious institutions. In 1776, Weishaupt organized the Illuminati to put the plot into execution. The word Illuminati is derived from Lucifer and means holders of the light. Using the lie that his objective was to bring about one world government and to enable men with proven mental ability to govern the world, he recruited about 2,000 followers. These included the most intelligent men in the field of arts and letters, education, the sciences, finance, and industry. He then established lodges of the Grand Orient to be their secret headquarters. Weishaupt's revised plan required his Illuminati to do the following things to help them accomplish their purpose. 1. Use monetary and sex bribery to obtain control of people already occupying positions in high places in the various levels of all governments and other fields of human endeavor. Once an influential person had fallen for the lies, deceits, and temptations of the Illuminati, they were to be held in bondage by application of political and other forms of blackmail and threats of financial ruin, public exposure, and physical harm, and even death to themselves and their loved ones. 2. Illuminati on the faculties of colleges and universities were to recommend students possessing exceptional mental ability belonging to well-bred families with international leanings for special training in internationalism. This training was to be provided by granting scholarship to those selected. They were to be educated, indoctrinated into accepting the idea that only a one-world government can put an end to the recurring wars and tribulations. They were to be at first persuaded and then convinced that men of special ability and brains had the right to rule those less gifted, because the goyim, masses of the people, don't know what is best for them physically, mentally, and spiritually. Today, 3 such special schools are located in Gordonstone in Scotland, Salem in Germany, and Anavirta in Greece. Prince Philip, the husband of Queen Elizabeth of England, was educated at Gordonstone at the instigation of Lord Louis Mountbatten, his uncle, who became Britain's Admiral of the fleet after World War II ended. Number 3. Influential people trapped into coming under the control of the Illuminati and students who had been specially educated and trained were to be used as agenteurs and placed behind the scenes of all governments as experts and specialists so they could advise the top executives to adopt policies which would in the long run serve the secret plans of the one-worlders and bring about the ultimate destruction of the governments and religions they were elected or appointed to serve. Number 4, the Illuminati were to obtain control of the press and all other agencies which distribute information to the public. News and information was to be slanted so that the Goyim would come to believe that a one-world government is the only solution to our many and varied problems. Because Britain and France were the two greatest powers at the end of the 18th century, Weishaupt ordered the Illuminati to foment the colonial wars to weaken the British Empire and organize the Great Revolution to weaken the French Empire. The latter he scheduled should start in 1789. A German author named Zwack put Weishaupt's revised vision of the age-old conspiracy into book form and named it Einige Originalskripten. In 1784, a copy of this document was sent to the Illuminists Weishaupt had delegated to foment the French Revolution. The courier was struck dead by lightning as he rode through Ratisbon on his way from Frankfurt to Paris. The police found the subversive documents on his body and turned them over to the proper government authorities. After careful study of the plot, the Bavarian government ordered the police to raid Weishaupt's newly organized lodges of the Grand Orient and the homes of some of his most influential associates, including the castle of Baron Baus in Sandersdorf. Additional evidence thus obtained convicted the authorities. The documents were a genuine copy of a conspiracy by which the Synagogue of Satan, who ruled the Illuminati at the top, planned to use wars and revolutions to bring about the establishment of one kind or another of a one-world government, the powers of which they intended to usurp as soon as it was established in 1785. The Bavarian government outlawed the Illuminati and closed the lodges of the Grand Orient. In 1786, they punished the details of the conspiracy. The English title is The Original Writings of the Order and Sect of the Illuminati. Copies of the conspiracy were sent to the heads of church and state. The power of the Illuminati was so great that this warning was ignored, as were the warnings of Christ had given to the world. The Illuminati went underground. Weishaupt instructed his Illuminists to infiltrate into the lodges of Blue Masonry and form a secret society within secret societies. Only Masons who proved themselves internationalists and whose conduct proved they had defected from God are initiated into the Illuminati. Thus the conspirators used the cloak of philanthropy to hide their revolutionary and subversive activities. In order to infiltrate into Masonic lodges in Britain, Illuminists invited John Robison over to Europe. He was a high-degree Mason in the Scottish Rite, professor of natural philosophy at Edinburgh University, and secretary of the Royal Society of Edinburgh. John Robison did not fall for the lie that the objective of the one-worlders was to form a benevolent dictatorship. He kept his reactions to himself, however, and was entrusted with a copy of Weishaupt's revived conspiracy for study and safekeeping. Because the heads of the church and state in France were advised to ignore the warnings given them, the revolution broke out in 1789. In order to alert other governments to their danger, in 1798, John Robison published a book entitled Proof of a Conspiracy to Destroy All Governments and Religions, but his warnings had been ignored, as were the others. Thomas Jefferson had become a student of Weishaupt's. He was one of his strongest defenders when he was outlawed by his government. Jefferson infiltrated the Illuminati into the newly organized lodges of the Scottish Rite in New England. Realizing his information will shock many Americans, I wish to record the following facts. In 1789, John Robison warned Masonic leaders of the Illuminati had infiltrated into their lodges. On July 19, 1798, David Papin, president of Harvard University, issued the same warning to the graduating class and lectured them on the influence Illuminism was having on American politics and religion. John Quincy Adams had organized the New England Masonic lodges. In 1800, he decided to oppose Jefferson for the presidency. He wrote 3 letters to Colonel William L. Stone exposing how Jefferson was using Masonic lodges for subversive purposes. The information contained in these letters is credited with winning Adams the election. The letters are Rittenberg Square Library in Philadelphia. That's all I'm going to read for here, folks. I just want you to take this link and print the book and go read it. Okay. Even I've seen before, there were quotes from George Washington when he was president stating that there were secret groups within the Masonic lodges that he belonged to that he knew were Illuminists, and he knew they were all around him. And from what I know in my studies, when Thomas Jefferson ended his reign as the Illuminist leader in America, he turned it over to Albert Pike, who lived in Little Rock, Arkansas, the Civil War general who helped found the KKK, whose mentor I learned in a Masonic Lodge library was a Jesuit missionary named Peter Desmet, who is in St. Louis. You'll find Desmet High School and Desmet schools in around St. Louis, Missouri. He taught Albert Pike, and so did Giuseppe Mazzini from Italy. And they also taught, the Jesuit Desmet also taught Brigham Young, who went to Utah and found the Utah Valley because Peter Desmet was an explorer and told him where to go. And he found the place that Peter had described to him and said, this is the place. So, hope you enjoyed this. Pawns in the Game. It's a great book. There's 203 pages to read. The PDF connection will be below. And let's expose it all, folks. It's out there. It's been brought out so that we can all benefit from this knowledge and escape the power of these subversive people. So let's do it. They don't have any right to rule over us and do what they're doing right now today. Our whole world, everything we see on the news, the United Nations, the Council on Foreign Relations, everything about the world we live in is run by this organization. But it doesn't have to be. The powers that should not be don't have to run things that they're running. We don't have to use their money. But everyone has to wake up to know that. Thank you for coming to Plain Mundane Show. I'm Alex Aquarius. Please hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. I'm out.